Hello and welcome back to City Planner Plays, where we are building the city of Ashland in Clearwater County. And in this episode, we're going to do a number of things. We're going to focus on the high school and really building out a campus, and we are going to focus on farming. And I'll get into why we're going to do that in just a moment, but I want to explain how I got here. So, someone left a comment, Antoine Jameson, and he said, "When this includes high school sports and rivalries within the county, I'm going to be so hype." And let me tell you, Antoine, I am too. So that's something that we're going to focus on today. And I wanted to, before we get into all of that, first of all, let's admire what's happening down here in downtown. We've got some really interesting things happening at street level, some really interesting buildings, and it feels like a proper downtown. The one thing I don't love is this elementary school. We're going to work on that at some point. Probably not right now, but how about that? One of the comments that I got too said I should make some of these really eye-catching buildings at prominent locations historical, and I agree. And this is one of those buildings that at this corner, this would be a view that you'd want to preserve. So I really like that. But before we get into the high school and building out agriculture, I want to get into a topic that I found interesting. So I was on Discord talking with Will CS, a buddy of mine who's a moderator on the Discord server, and he recommended that I deviate from the grid a bit. And that made me think. I don't think I've ever explained why I built a grid here. So there are a number of reasons why I built a grid. First of all, they're easy to develop. There are few irregular lots, so it's orderly and logical to navigate. It's really good for transportation purposes, and they're highly adaptable. So you can break a grid up, kind of like I did here. I just removed a block and add in bigger uses. It's also highly walkable, and it disperses traffic amongst many routes, which is why if we take a look at our traffic, we'll move this vitals watch thing away. You can see that there's not really any traffic problems anywhere. There are some heavy spots, although this is in our commercial core, and I don't really think of traffic as a problem in a commercial area. I think of it as an opportunity for those businesses. Not all congestion's equal, I guess I'd say. Congestion here would disturb me, not congestion here. So it disperses traffic because there are lots of parallel routes. People can choose their own destiny, but there are some things that are problematic with the grid. Such as it's very uniform, so it can be boring to look at. It's unnatural. People don't operate in straight lines. They operate, in meandering ways, as does nature. Nature, this is not a straight line here. This is kind of a meandering line. It also doesn't always respect the topography. You think of a place like San Francisco or Seattle, and you have these gridded blocks just going straight up hills. So I get that. And another problem is you miss out on architectural opportunities that you have when you have unique blocks. And you can see that City Skylines doesn't deal with this very well. There's this triangle right here. That would be an opportunity to bring this building and fit this parcel. But this isn't happening in City Skylines. But in cities where you don't have a grid, you often see that. So I understand that there are issues, by having a grid. But I guess I want to express that it's not a uniquely American thing, because I think that's one of the things that is a criticism that often comes out is this grid is American, and it is showing my lack of perspective. But grids are not American. In fact, you can go all the way back to I think 2600 BC and find grids in the ancient Indus Valley. You can find them in Giza in Egypt. You can find them in Greece. The Greeks are really the ones who spearheaded this, and when they were conquered by the Romans took the idea and ran with it. Think of a city like Zaragoza in Spain. The grid there is from the Romans. It was also used in Asia, places like Kyoto, Japan, and Jiangsu, Korea, and in other places that were more recently developed. Think of a master planned city like St. Petersburg, Russia, built on a grid. Even if there are deviations within that grid is still the foundation of the transportation network. And then cities that wanted to improve the health of residents that were built using natural kind of natural development patterns, such as Barcelona, Spain, decided to deviate from those patterns in favor of the grid. So it's not just that Americans have found the grid to be beneficial. It's been adopted worldwide, and it has been around since ancient times. So in America, the grid goes back to the 1700s, right after the Revolutionary War. Thomas Jefferson spearheaded the Public Land Survey System, or PLSS, to divide lands. And the main reason for this is it was orderly. It was easy to do. It was a way to create parcels that could easily be sold and easily be used. So the PLSS divided areas into quadrangles, townships, sections, half sections, quarter sections, etc. And you can see this all over the landscape in the U.S. In the Midwest, for instance, you often see that rural roads are developed on these section boundaries. And that's something that we're going to use today when we develop our rural area, because that's something that dots the landscape. And it makes development in the future orderly, because you can sell off a quarter section or a quarter of a quarter section and develop that. But there are exceptions in the U.S. The 13 colonies, they obviously were here before the PLSS, and there were places in the South that decided not to adopt it. While I understand that a natural development pattern would be interesting, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily the right pattern here. And if you look at the topography, there's nothing that would restrict the grid from developing. Let's take a look at that. So when we take a look at the topography, you see it's relatively flat. So why would topography dictate the roadway network? We don't have cattle paths or Native American trails or anything like that to dictate the roadway network either. So in light of not having those features, what you would see is development occurring either along natural features like the water. You know, people want to develop the waterfront. That might be a place where you'd see it. Or you'd see it happening orderly, just like this. So those are considerations. But we're going to get building. But I noticed one thing. We have a dead person waiting for transport. And we don't have any death care. So we're going to take care of that right off the bat. And as I spoke earlier about breaking the grid, I think this is a great opportunity to do so. So what we're going to do is come over here, break the grid up, and I want to add a cemetery. So let's look into our death care. We'll add a cemetery right here next to the church. And we could either leave this as is or add a road. I don't think a road is necessary here. So what we're going to do is just add a pedestrian path. And this will be something that we can use as a feature to kind of create a nice orderly pedestrian environment. So we can add some trees along there. I did get prop line tool added here, and I did make sure I added that to the list as well. So if you are subscribed to this list, you can rest assured that you will have these assets if you subscribe to it. So this is an area I don't want to develop. I don't want to inadvertently put some residential along there. I don't mind having residential in the back, and I think we might do that because there's a strong residential demand, but I don't want to get too close. I want to leave some space and respect the things happening here. So eventually I probably will want to do something with cemeteries. The cemeteries have a church built in, and I don't think that's necessarily desirable. So we might get some other cemetery assets, and I encourage you throughout this entire series, if you are aware of some really spectacular assets, please let me know about those, because I want to incorporate them into the build. So we've got that here, and we're in a place now where we could start expanding. So let's talk a little bit about that PLSS system. So one thing you'll often see this day and age is places divided into 1 acre or 1 mile squares. So that reminds me, there was a request to show this in both meters and the imperial system, so I'm going to change that now. Kidding, I cannot do that. So I'm going to apologize and say that I really wish that I could, but I cannot. So back to this. What I'm thinking I might do, so a mile is about 200 units in this game. So what I think I'm going to do is try to round out our grid here and create a nice orderly place for development to begin occurring in the rural areas. So from here, I could measure up 200 tiles, and that would be a mile. That is way too long. So I think we're gonna go half, and we'll split the difference here. We'll call it good at 100. So this is, we're gonna go, this is 18, I guess. That's not ideal. So we went over another 82 units, and then we'll come down 100. We're lining up all weird. I do not like this. Not one bit. So we are going to call a mulligan on this and start fresh. So these will kind of be our rural sections. So I like dividing this up. You can see it. These aren't perfect. This is 50. This is 100 square. So this is 100 by 50. And then we could come over here one more. And this will be good enough for now. I mean, this is one of the things that we're going to struggle with because of our development pattern and different things of that nature. We're going to struggle to develop a perfect transition to the rural area, but it'll be good enough. So I do want to complete some residential right up to the back of these fields. And I want to develop a fairly significant rural area. And the way that we're going to do that, so we're going to go into our industries. And what you'll see is that all of these are blocked off. So what we're going to need to do is actually go in and paint an industry area. And this is kind of what drove me to want to develop a rural farm type area. I was initially thinking this could be a great area for fishing, but it's really a great area for farming. Okay, so now we have an area where we could begin our farm. So you always need to start with one of these main farm buildings. We're just going to toss that off in the corner for now, and that'll unlock some other things for us. Small animal pastures, crop fields, fruit fields, things of that nature. So we're good there. So let's start placing some of these. So I hate when this overlay comes up, and I could get a mod to get rid of that, but you can also just click away. That works just as well. We're going to place 2 fields right there, and then start developing some rural roads. So this is a perfect 90, and I wanted to place this like this so that I could turn these around, because I want to get these all to be in the same order, or in the same orientation rather. Now I'm guessing what I just did is going to be controversial, but I'm excited about it. So the realistic population mod, I think, is going to provide me some flexibility to do things I wouldn't otherwise normally do because of the traffic. So one of the things that I'm noticing is that the requirements for farms are lessened because of this mod. So I'm hoping that I can create a much larger farming area that feels a little bit more alive than the farming areas in this game normally do. And so I have all potatoes here. You know, potatoes are important, but I grew up in a place that has lots and lots of corn. So we're gonna do corn. So I'm kind of regretting this wall of cornfields that I've created. It makes me think about how I want to lay out the next segment of farms. So I am going to place 6 of these, I think. I'll kind of use that as my foundation in this next area. And I'll divide up all of these areas using that same sort of rationale. So again, I will use these fields as my guide and orient them accordingly. And actually, you know, I was rotating those. I don't even think it's necessary. They look fine. So with this one, I don't have enough money. So we're going to speed things up a little bit because we gotta get some cash. We're also having issues with water availability, which to me is a problem with our budget because I think that we turned our water down. We did. So we also have road maintenance turned down. That's not great, but it's not the end of the world. Vehicles will just go a little bit slower. We still have some maintenance occurring. So what I want to do here is create a road in here that I could place a farmstead and some silos and things of that nature. So I am going to zone a bit of property here. We'll say that there are 2 farmsteads at this residence. And then once we have more money, we will place a small grain silo. So you can see that we're kind of at the struggle phase in terms of our finances. This is always kind of one of those fun places to be. So we're going to call a quick mulligan here because I do want there to be some order. We'll divide this, take some houses, and move our fields over. We do need to understand how wide this is though. So let's just figure that out. So this is 26 units, $650. And I feel like this is a much more reasonable pattern. And you can see that it just fits too. So it's going to be a nice pattern for us to continue developing as we build this out. So, but we wouldn't just have cornfields everywhere. We would mix things up a little bit and have other types of farms as well. And we should probably take this main farm building and move it a little bit closer to our operation once we had the money for it, that is. Relocation cost, significant. So we'll just connect up power down here and call it a day for now. They have water, they're good. So you can see it's easy to try to get ahead of yourself with infrastructure. I desperately want to just build out infrastructure. Instead, I'm going to stare at this and wonder where I'm going wrong. Where I'm going wrong is that right now I've got 3 silos and they're, probably all about 53% full. We're not doing anything with this. We're not processing it. We're not doing much of anything. It's just existing. For our next level, we are going to need more resources produced. We're going to hit that fairly soon. What we really need are more residential uses. So let's build out this area down here a bit further, or we will level up and be happy about that. We're getting some interesting buildings now. The flour mill, which is helpful, the bakery, the workers' barracks, cattle shed, and a small barn. So I know that we can start making flour right away, but we can't have a bakery until we also have cattle. So we're going to need a cattle farm if we want to do a little bit more. And now we have our small barns, so we don't have to use just silos. So that's very helpful. So let's still first think about some residential development. And we're going to preserve this whole block right here because I think that we're going to break this grid up, add some parking, and add some sports type uses to the high school area. And you can see that because we are starting to adopt this farm grid, things are breaking up a little bit, and that's okay. That will create a unique street grid in this particular area. So let's extend utilities to this area and get some zoning in place. And we can just go strictly with residential uses. That's where most of our demand is at this point. I just kind of want to take a look. I always really find the aesthetic of buildings really backing up to farms is fascinating. And look at this. Imagine your backyard. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Your backyard, you're just looking out at these beautiful farm fields. That's lovely. You get the urban environment and you get the rural agricultural environment all at once. So I think that's wonderful. So we've got some money. I'm going to slow things down a little bit because you can tell that we're having a battle right now. A battle between farm workers and commercial workers. And I'm guessing we're going to start experiencing that same battle over here in our industrial area. So those are things to watch out for because those will be, coming needs. So let's get back to our farm. And I want to continue building out our farm area. So let's build out this road right here. We do have enough money to finally move this farming main building. Right here. And then we will eliminate those power lines because they're unnecessary. So I mentioned that to have the bakery, we're going to need some animal pastures. So we are going to set some of those up. Now, unfortunately, these don't seem to fit in our grid quite as nicely. Now, that might be because there are only 5 fields worth or five fields worth of tiles over here. So we're gonna actually move this over and see if it fits better when there is more space available. And to me, it looks like this will fit perfectly 4 fields across. Again, we'll speed this up. We might go back to thinking about our residential demand because it's still incredible. So we'll return to our previous grid. So we were going out 15. We do have an extra gap here now, which is interesting, but not a big deal. So that's one of the things about the grid. It doesn't have to be super rigid. You don't have to completely conform to it. You can have a modified grid where things are just a bit askew. That's okay. Totally fine. So I don't love that things are spread just a little bit too far out here. And as a result, I had to add those extra water pipes, but that's the nature of the beast sometimes. So I'm going to pause this for a minute because since we have this wide block here, I think it's an interesting opportunity to potentially add an alleyway through here. So why don't we contemplate that? We will throw an alley in here, and this would give people another opportunity and another development pattern. In reality, I guess, in the game, we're not going to see a different development pattern, but, you know, I still like the idea of having an alley. So I just wanted to turn zoning off in that alley so we get 2 different block sizes. I also want to update that and get things looking a little cleaner. So this will be a special street. It'll be an interesting place. It'll create a different development pattern than elsewhere in the city, and I like that. I think that's interesting. Okay, so back to our farm. So we currently have no place to store our animal products, which is going to be an issue. So I do want to place more of these farm buildings and use those as my guide for where I'm placing homes and things of that nature. So I think I'm going to go right along the side here. And now we have a 4x4 tile. We're going to do 2 things here. We're going to place a home. This would be the farm residence. And I also want to think about some small barns. We'll place those on the main road so that we're not, well, I guess I'll place one on the main road because I can't afford a second one. But it's important to keep in mind, this is for crops, so this is actually the wrong building. That's a problem. That said, you would still need some sort of ability to have crops to feed the animals. So maybe it's not the end of the world that we have it here. But for animal products, we're actually going to need some warehouses. So when I look at the warehouses, we have 2 available to us. We have this warehouse yard, kind of a weird place to leave animal products. And then we have these small warehouses. So the difference is double in price. The capacity is 2.5 times greater. So clearly I would prefer to have this larger warehouse. We're just going to have to wait it out. Okay, so we need to change this, and we're going to change it to animal products. So we've got our animal products, and you can already see that our budget's getting interesting now. So it says that we're losing money. That's kind of to be expected at this point. But let's go into our budget panel where we can actually take a look more at our industrial area. We have no income coming from these goods. And the main reason for that is we have these crops, they're just kind of filling up. We have our animal products, they're just starting to be a thing. We have pigs, we have Highland cows. Let's vary this up a little bit. We'll have some pigs there, Highland cows, and we'll add a couple more here. Kind of want to round this area out, and our road's too long. So what I might do is give myself some flexibility. So I'll throw on anarchy, place that, and then back this road out ever so slightly. And we're totally fine there. While we're here, a little landscaping didn't hurt anyone, unless you're in Verde Beach. So, that's a little large. So I just kind of want something decorative. know what I really like? Weeping willows. I don't have any. So instead we'll just use a regular bush. And we will give this farm a bit of privacy, make it feel a bit secluded. Oh yeah, I like that. That's nice. Give this area a little bit of character. This is not at all necessary. This just makes me happy. So sometimes you got to do things because it makes you happy. A little bit of flour, that to me, that's nice. Come down here, welcome home. And we're making money while we're planting flowers, so wins all around. So now we have these animal products. We've got lots and lots of things happening over here with our silos. Planted flowers where I need to put a barn, so that's something. So we're gonna take out all those flowers, leave them inside the barn, I guess. We can leave these couple here, that's fine. Drive through the flowers to get your products within there. And now the next thing I think we need to think a little bit about are some of our buildings that will support this. So a flour mill to me would be very important. Now I wish we could keep this outside of our farm area, but it won't let us. So what we're gonna have to do is extend this over. So I think that we should probably put this in an area that either doesn't have the ability to farm or is outside of our normal area. So actually, why don't we think about this a little bit? Let's see, that is 18 tiles. So 18 up. And you can kind of see that this someday is going to be the basis of the grid in our city when this area develops. Okay, so we've got these little squares, and when we look at this, you can see that this square right here can't really be used for farming purposes. So this would be an excellent location to right along this road here, and we have anarchy on. We will put our flour mill. Now I meant to get some rural power lines. I didn't, so we're going to use transmission lines to get everything over here to our flour mill. Already got water here, so no need to worry about that. And now that we have a flour mill, we have to have a place to store our flour. So we're going to go in here again and think about our warehouses. So again, I don't think it makes a ton of sense to have a flour mill that's storing its flour outside. Call me crazy. So we are going to place our flour mill products within one of these enclosed small warehouses. And here we're going to let the buildings guide our roadway development pattern. So that's why we have this road here. This will be what guides what we're doing. And that's something that I think is fairly common, that you'd see roads developed, demanded from a city. Maybe demanding is the wrong word, but they would be required with development of a building to disperse traffic a bit. And we'll get some landscaping in there to make it feel a little bit more alive. I don't know that there would be a big desire to block the view shed or sounds coming between these two buildings. But I do think landscaping would make this feel more like a place that is desirable to be at. So we'll store flour in here. So now we have this production chain. So we've got animal products here. We've got flour here. So what we now need is a bakery. So I love the look of the bakery. And it's one of those buildings that you don't have to keep within the farm area. So we now have all the products you need to make a unique factory building, or a unique product. So this to me looks like a downtown building, and you would see things like this in a downtown area. In fact, here in Madison, one of the things that I've always loved is you drive down East Washington on a Sunday morning and it smells like bread. And that's because there's a bread baking factory right in the middle of town. And so I could put that out here in the farm, but why? It's an urban building for an urban area. So let's place it within the urban area. So this building is $25,000. We're right on the cusp of being able to build it. Now we have it. And there it is. Let's take a look at this relative to the other buildings. Go nuts donuts. Nice brick building. Wonderful glazing on there. Just tons of glass, letting people see what's happening within the building. And it really meshes well with this graffiti building right across the street. So, obviously Brooklyn. Hopefully this levels up. This is a level 1 building. I'm hoping level 2 looks a little bit more like this. So, for the time being, this is what we have. We're not going to make this historical. Alright, so now that we have that, let's develop more of the roadway network around here. And you'll see that this doesn't fit perfectly, and that's okay. Completely fine. But we will continue our commercial patterns out here. We're not gonna develop this. Behind it, we're just gonna leave that. First of all, I don't have buildings that are gonna work with that, and that was a purposeful omission. And second of all, why? Let's block some of that view with landscaping. Let's make it look a little bit nicer. So I'm reluctant. I built this commercial area, but I know that every single commercial building I put up redirects some of this residential development and the people living here to working in this area, and I need people working at the farm. And if you take a look at the farm, we now have a 2-star farm, and one of the things holding us back more than anything is our residential our workers. So our residential area is holding us back, and that's one of the reasons you see the demand for residential being as high as it is. So we are going to continue building this out. We're not going to develop the downtown any further, this commercial district any further, because we need to be cognizant of the issues that we're creating. The other issue that we just created is we didn't create a warehouse for our finished product. So again, small warehouse, and in here we're going to place unique factory products. And you know what I want to do? I want this empty. I want them to export this good as soon as they get it. So one of the things I noticed is that we have this beautiful lighthouse right here. And look at that view. That is just, it's gorgeous. This would be a potential tourist destination. And this is one thing that Eggsy did a great job of. I mean, you look at this, this feels real. This is beautiful. And the detailing in this area is just lovely. That said, we've got this road coming off here, and we have an opportunity again to make our roadway network a little bit more interesting. Maybe not that interesting, but a little bit more interesting. So one of the things that I'm struggling with this is I want to get an angle that will create a nice connection here. So we're going to use Move It just a little bit, smooth this out. And I really hate to modify anything that Eggsy's done because he's done such a great job, but this will work a little bit better with our development pattern. So this street is leading to a vista. It's leading directly to, you see it's almost pointed directly at our lighthouse. So that'll be a road that breaks things up a little bit, creates some visual interest within our grid. We still need more residential development, so we're going to keep doing that. And we've got those water pipes underneath the road for the most part, where they belong. It's important to me. And if you're new to this series or my channel, that's something that you will hear me harp on all the time. It means a lot to me, so I will continue to stick with it. So now you can see that we've got some interesting things happening here with the roadway network. So we have development occurring here, and one of the things I think would be interesting to see would be nodes of commercial for these residential uses. So we are going to convert some of those. This road, which we haven't been naming things as much as I'd like. By that I mean not at all. We're going to make this Lighthouse Way. And I really do think that we're at a point where I need to start labeling some of these before I forget. So this is our first street, which means that away from here, we're going to need to give this some more thought. Whoa! Some of that circling, we're going to need to take care of that. So 6th Street will be Church Street because we've already named that. So there will be no 6th Street. We'll go straight to 7th here. So this is kind of a bit of inspiration from Denver. I believe Colfax is actually 13th Street. 13th Street doesn't exist in Denver. So kind of neat. And it looks like I missed the street here, so we're going to call a mulligan on some of this stuff. So we've got those streets named. I think for these other streets, we're going to try to take some inspiration from the founders of the city and other important people in the world. So give me some ideas there. You know, we certainly. I want to make sure that we are really contemplating the history of this area. So one of the comments that I read was Ashland Mansion District was a little bit too on the nose. Ashland Estates, maybe a little bit better. So we have converted that over. I'm kind of curious. It looks like all of these are level 2. We're going to need to do some work to get those leveled up. So, okay, where are we at with our farm now? We've got some money. We've still got a worker problem. So we've got our resources. We don't have workers. Which reminds me of a game that I keep getting recommended to play, Workers and Resources. So we've got some interesting deviations of the grid happening over here, and the main purpose for that is to make sure that we have nice clean connections into Lighthouse Way. So we've done that. I do want to take a look at our zoning again. Let's not zone Lighthouse. At least we'll stop at some point. So I've decided to stop the commercial district right about here. We'll continue down here with some residential uses. Now we are going to need some utilities in this area, but this will do the trick. And I'm going to pull the zoning off from the coast because I don't want to destroy what's happening on the coast, if at all possible. Okay, so now we have some of our demand being met by all of this stuff that we have going on over here in terms of our zoning, so we should be okay for now. I kind of just want to check out our utilities. We have some electrical problems. That's going to become a limiting factor for us. So let's take a look at our budget. Might just want to pump this up for the time being. We're going to do more with this later on, but for now, let's just get ourselves in a spot where we can continue to grow. So we are doing okay over here. Oh, we lost our house. That's sad. So I think that part of that might have been using move it on this road. Let's call a mulligan on Murray and replace this road. Now we've got a nice 4x4 square, which we can use for a home. So our electricity availability is still going to be a limiting factor, and I'm starting to be concerned about our garbage processing status. But I shouldn't be, we're fine. So at this point, we just need to let things build out a little bit. So let's focus on the second part of our build today, and that is this high school campus. So there was a comment from Planner Pete in the Discord server that I really agreed with, and that is I put way too much landscaping in here, and the result of all this landscaping would be less eyes on the street, so to speak, and a less safe environment. So we're going to call a mulligan on the landscaping, which I'm not overly concerned with because we're going to call a mulligan on this road too, because we're going to do something significant here and create a sports complex on this campus. So Ashland is going to be a community very focused on its recreational opportunities for its children. So we're going to place a number of assets near this high school and a parking lot for the students. So let's first think about what we could place. So first, I think football would be a really important thing to place here. So football stadiums are interesting. They're very disruptive. On game day, which happens, 8 to 12 weeks out of the year, depending. But everyone loves them. So even though you got lights and, you know, this is going to be a very, very active area, people will still forgive it for the children. We'll back that off a little bit. We don't want that directly on the road. Move it over just one. Now we have at least a path here. We're going to do more. We're going to do more with this. But I like that. So next, I do want to have a soccer field. And I think having that in relatively close proximity would be the right call. And lastly, we're going to want baseball. Ooh, that doesn't fit. That doesn't fit. That's a problem. So we might tighten this up a bit. So the reason why I wanted to place all of these is to demonstrate partially how difficult development of a high school can be. They're very large. And you might imagine that there might be 2 of these baseball diamonds in reality. So I think we're going to deviate 12th a little bit. Call a mulligan on some of these homes. Very sorry, but the school district thanks you for your home. And we will go back to our original game plan, which was to back this out a little bit, give a little bit of space. We want to have some paths through here. And then we'll have our baseball diamond here. And we will very unfortunately demolish a number of homes to make this school setup work, which I don't personally believe would be all that unreasonable. Schools have a lot of sway, and they ask people for money and people give it to them. So why not? Okay, so let's get some paths through here because that would be absolutely mandatory. So I'd imagine wanting a wider path along the high school here leading up. So I don't love what this does here. In fact, I don't love it to the point that maybe I'll just use... I will just leave it and we'll call it good there. Wondering about my mods. We'll see if I'm missing one. Surface Painter. So I'll have to get that added into the mod list. Again, this is kind of one of those things that happens when you are creating a new series. Sometimes or a new city, you sometimes will forget mods like that. So I think in reality, you'd have a main field here and then some practice fields as well. There'd be some, you know, arm wringing over having this particular home. I don't think that they would love to be that close to the ball field, but that would be something that they would have to get over. We'll put some landscaping there to kind of deal with some of that. And then we're going to leave this campus open. I think that would also be something that you might see as the school tries to preserve land for future expansion. And we're going to have a parking lot, so that's going to be another thing that we're going to need to work out. So, full disclosure, I grabbed a new parking lot mod this time, and I am not well versed with it. So, what we're going to be using are the big parking lots. So we have these drive aisles, we have filler pieces, and then we use anarchy with these parking squares to make parking actually happen. So I could be lazy and just place a parking lot. That's probably pretty unreasonable at a high school. You'd think that the administration would say you're lucky that you have what you have, which is... So there is a lot going on with this mod. I'll put it that way. So we want to make sure that we're only placing vehicles on the correct streets. So I had to turn off zoning on what they're calling Lee Street. And that makes it possible for me to place zoning in the correct location. So the other thing I have to keep in mind is I want to be able to close these out. You see that I just got these in slightly the wrong spot, and it's getting all wonky on me. So this is not a rationally sized parking lot, but we're going to go with it for the time being. And I will learn how to use this mod a little bit better. It's certainly a new thing for me, So, live and learn, I guess. So, what we're going to do is just have this long parking lot coming up here, kind of awkwardly. And I keep using my eyedropper, and I'm just going to pull this down and eyedrop some things in. And we're going to call it. Because I don't know that I'm going to get much better. I'm not, by any means, an expert on this yet. But I'm going to get there. That's my goal. I will be an expert parking lot asset manager. So I've got to remember to use Control A and turn off that anarchy. And look what it did. Took away my access to the parking lot. Those are kind of wonky looking on the outside, but I have a fix that you should all take advantage of. Plenty of landscaping. So that is what we're going to do. We will put a nice wall of landscaping here. Real gentle landscaping. We'll do Shift P. Go in here, throw anarchy on. And a nice row of bushes all the way along the parking lot. And wow, that is ugly right there. We're going to cover it up. We're going to make it look at least passable. Okay, so I'm gonna let that go. I know that I need to do better, but better's not going to happen today. So, in light of understanding where we're at, we're going to just leave that there. So I do think, in an ode to the neighbors over here, we are going to place these cypress trees in a row along here to try to prevent some of those fly balls from hitting the neighbors. No, I don't like that at all. We're not going to do that. But we will place some small oak trees right here. And then let's zoom out and let's place some landscaping throughout this site. Okay, so the high school campus feels a little bit more full to me, a little bit more alive, a lot more activity. Now we have multiple basketball courts, we have this nice walking pedestrian path through here. Got a football stadium. We've got a soccer stadium. We've got a baseball stadium. So we could have some activities going on in this area in really a community gathering place. People could come together and support their children and their fellow community members. So I really like this. I think it's an important thing. We are going to want to take a look at our streets. Made a couple deviations. Interesting. So we have 11th doing some things. So okay, we have Main Street right there, so we're good. Now, there is some weird stuff happening here. So you kind of see these vehicles circling around. So I'm not going to be able to do much about that outside of mod the game. So what I think is happening here is we have tourists coming over here. So Lee Hawkins mentioned that there's a mod to fix this. I didn't load it up yet. I'm going to test it out. But basically it stops these dummy vehicles from just spinning around. We can take a look at that. So if we look at our traffic routes, we see that there's a whole bunch of dummy traffic coming in, doing a loop, leaving right away. So what I'm thinking is maybe I could just make a truck stop over here or something. So now we've got this right here. They're not taking the bait. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, they are. Okay. So if we've got this going on, maybe we're going to be okay. So let's add a truck stop over here. So I'm going to go into our creator packs, and it's not unlocked yet. It's part of the Japanese creator pack. I thought maybe a drive-in restaurant. We need a bigger population. We're still a little bit short. But the nice thing is this will at least make some of this nonsense stop. Let's speed it up for a second, see if all this clears out. All right, we're looking good down here. You know, they're doing things. So we'll need to look for a mod for that because I certainly don't love the dummy traffic doing all this. I could also get super hokey with it, add a roundabout. That would probably be a way to handle it. In fact, I guess temporarily, why don't we handle it like this? Probably makes a little bit more sense. Go into Traffic Manager, we will configure it. And now they can at least loop back around if that's what they're going to do. Come right into Clearwater County and quickly exit. Goodbye. We're sorry we couldn't keep you in the county. We would love you to stay and visit, but I guess it's not in the cards this time around. But that helps us to see the traffic that we actually have here, because truthfully, we don't have bad traffic except for this area. I guess we have some things happening here too. We'll use Traffic Manager. Yeah, I don't love that. I don't love that at all. So I was fairly certain that I had all these configured in the lanes marked, but apparently I lost it. So I guess that's an unfortunate thing. I'm going to check the other one over here just in case. And it looks like we're okay over here, so I won't worry about it too much. I did notice one thing that is concerning me though, and that is this. This beautiful castle completely disconnected. Let's get that connected real quick. We're going to want to make sure that our signals are correct here. Stop there, because the speed differential here would be insane. But at least there's a way to get up here and check out this beautiful castle. I love that. That is great. So we want people to be able to come here if they want to. Let's get back to our city. You can see that we've made some progress today, but I think here's where we're going to leave it. We're going to slow it down, take it down a notch, and admire the progress that we've made. The city is bigger. We've added population, we've added industry, and we're making some money. Let's go back into our budget panel and take a look. We are losing more money than we're making from this industry. Not surprising right now, but we're going to take this up to the next level in the next episode. And I think a big part of that's going to be expanding this, making sure that we have enough storage for everything. We are maxing out our storage for these barns, and that is a problem. In fact, before we leave, because I can never just let things be, we're going to add a couple of silos. Make this person very sad. That is not what they thought they were going to see in front of their house. And I get it. I'm sorry. That would be bothersome. That said, we'll give you some trees. I'm sure that makes up for everything. So, how about we'll hide it behind a tree? Behind 2 trees? Maybe 3 trees. So, now if you're in your house, you still see it. It's still there. So, either way, it's something. It's a little bit of shielding. Not going to help you with this truck deciding to pull in and quickly turn around, but it is absolutely necessary that we have storage for our products. So I think we're in a good spot. We're going to leave it here. I want to thank you so much for joining me. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. I'm loving this series. It's so much fun to be able to work with mods, do something that feels a little bit more natural and organic. And truthfully, you know, I love building these small towns. I think that they have so much character and so much detail. And as much as I love a big city, there's something that just feels really intimate about a small town. And small towns become medium-sized towns, and medium-sized towns become big cities, and Ashland will grow up. But right now, I'm really enjoying this little town. It's a really special place. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you liked this episode. If you did, please consider hitting the like button. If you want to subscribe to my channel, please consider doing so, and hit the notification bell if you want to know when I release new videos. I also want to give a huge shout out to my Patreon supporters. You can see their names listed right here. And I want to thank you. Thank you so much for joining me and for coming on this journey in Ashland and Clearwater County with me. I'm going to leave you with a brief city tour like I always do, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.